Libra. Happy solstice, blessed Mabon. You're still in the shadow of the eclipse that occurred during the last full moon, or if you don't follow astrology at all or ascribe to it, happy fall. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host Naomi, and this is Mosaic in Progress. We are on episode 73, and in season 3 now. This episode is really about trauma processing, both my own personal and collectively. Shit's really heavy right now. And personally, I have been going through some pretty intense stuff and dealing with some new trauma, and I appreciate your patience with me, those of you who follow me regularly. It's been really difficult lately. I'm surviving, and that's the best that I can say for myself right now. And that feels so pale in comparison to everything going on in the world right now. But here we are, dealing with it all, whatever we have in our personal lives and whatever is going on in the world. It's just going on, and we just have to keep going. And that feels really wrong. At least to me it does, and maybe it does to you as well. It feels really immoral to have to just get up and go to a 9 to 5 and worry about bills and debt and dishes when there's genocide going on the other side of the world. When there is the makings of genocide going on in our own country, it is dysphoric and surreal, and I know I'm not the only one that's dealing with those feelings, but that's what this podcast is about. We talk about things so that people don't feel alone. I've started back to therapy, yay me. And my last session with my therapist, she was like, "How are you?" I was like, "Not good." She was like, "What's going on?" I was like, "Have you watched the news? Genocide, war, awfulness, violence everywhere." And she was like, "Yeah, you're not the only one like that." And her parting piece of advice to me after our session was to look for the helpers. And she said, "I know it sounds corny because, it's just a quote from Mr. Rogers, but it reminded me a lot that fiction, though we downplay it so much, throughout time has been used as a tool. For some people, it is an escape. It is a way to dissociate. It is a way to check out. It is a way to pretend that what is happening is not happening. Let me escape into my own little world." And sometimes that is a very healthy coping mechanism. It was for me in my childhood, because I did not have the power or the ability or the resources to escape what I was going through. So escaping into fiction was very healthy for me. Is it healthy for adults? That is for adults to decide for themselves. However, fiction has been used a lot to help in illustrating problems, to invite empathy. Most people didn't really care about the problem of meat safety in the United States until the book The Jungle was written. It's a fiction book. But once it was written, suddenly it became an issue that people cared about. there was a lot of indifference to slavery until Uncle Tom's Cabin was written. Fiction has always been used as a tool to invite empathy, because sometimes just telling people your personal experience isn't enough. I've had countless people, and I've seen countless accounts of people relaying their personal experiences with whatever topic you have at hand, only to have people dismiss them, either to call them liars, to say that they were making it up, it didn't happen, or to tell them that they were just weak and couldn't handle reality, or any number of other ways of simply just dismissing them. But somehow it's easier for some people to relate to a character who isn't real. I read something recently that said the problems of society are those that have continued on forever. It is fear, anger, and hate. And I've struggled for a long time with anger, as a concept, because it seems to be so controversial within religion and spirituality as to what its purpose is. And it's interesting to me to come out of evangelical Christianity, in which, check your anger, and, of course, women aren't supposed to be angry. That's just a given. It's not in the Bible, but it's just a given because we're supposed to be soft, and softness isn't angry. And being raised in an abusive household where I was not allowed to be angry. The one time I remember showing my anger, I got beaten and yelled at up until about midnight for it, and decided I was never going to be angry again after that. And then as I grew older, finding my path spiritually and finding myself in these spiritual and esoteric circles where anger is also demonized. It's just anger is the opposite of love. Well, I knew that wasn't true, because you can be loving and be angry, like a mama bear, like Kali. Kali is one of the most loving goddesses that there is throughout the world. She's also very angry. She's very protective of her children, of her followers, and she will be very angry at those who hurt them. And I've sat with it for a long, long time. And is anger bad? Is anger equivalent to hate? And you hear that thing, I sat with my anger for a long time until she told me her real name was Hurt. And I don't think that's always true. But I do think that anger is a mask. Anger is a very protective mask for the emotions that are too deep to feel. And it's not universal to one emotion. Anger is a mask for love that is so deep, that is protective. Anger is a mask for fear. Anger is a mask for hurt. Anger in and of itself is not wrong, but anger is the thing that keeps us from feeling the deep feelings that need to be felt. I look at the recent assassination and those who were supporters of him, those who were followers of him, the reaction that they had of anger to those who merely shared his words without comment was angry, bordering on hateful. Sometimes not bordering, sometimes crossing over the line, fully planted in hateful. They were angry. They were so angry that there were people who were not mourning him. that is a mask for hurt. It's a mask for hurt, and that's all that it is. And for some, it is a mask for hurt and fear. Because those who are in power and have all the money, I am not including in this conversation, but your average everyday can't make ends meet, your coworker right-winger is afraid that you fucking pinko commie leftists, are trying to take away the little bit of money that they do have. And that your policies and your ideas are going to drive them into poverty to where they can't even make ends meet. We have a really good propaganda machine here in the United States, and it has kept us pitted against each other on the right and left, and it has kept us firmly divided into right and left for a long, long time. I shared a post a few weeks ago, a week or so ago, whenever it was, on my social media from a coworker who posted on the day of the assassination that anyone who was saying anything negative about him could just go ahead and delete her. And that's fine, whatever, it's your social media. But then she went on to say, anyone who is anti-Trump, anyone who is a Democrat, anyone who is pro-trans, pro-LGBTQIA+, leftists, or anything else that is not Christian, conservative, just go ahead and delete me. And I saw that post show up on my feed, and of course I took the screenshot of it because you've seen it shared. And before I could even unfriend her, because I said, don't mind me, I'll see myself out, she had already blocked me. So of course, knowing that she had blocked me, I became a little afraid for myself and my career. Because it's happening everywhere. People are getting doxxed. That people are finding the people who don't agree with them and just posting their information online, sending it to employers, etc. I never said anything celebratory about Charlie Kirk's death. Nor will I. I'm also not going to mourn his death. I'm not going to pretend like he was a hero. For some, he was. And I saw a post recently of someone who was leftist and was discussing with her conservative friend, Charlie Kirk. And they were sharing their respective opinions of him and their respective viewing of him. And the conservative friend showed the leftist friend some clips of Charlie Kirk saying some very positive things, some very wholesome things, and things that she even agreed with. And the leftist friend showed the conservative friend the clips of him saying all of the racist, misogynistic, homophobic things that he has said and is well known for. And neither one of them had ever heard either of those things before. And they remarked on that. The fact that because one was a supporter and one was not, that the algorithm only showed each of them a certain side of him. And this is what we're dealing with in our reality today, in social media, in whatever platform you're using, is that whatever it is that you regularly consume, whatever you align with, your algorithm is creating an echo chamber for you, a confirmation bias, to the point that when anyone says anything contrary to what you already believe, it feels like they're lying. This is by design. This is intentional. Because as I've said time and time again on this podcast, if we're fighting whoever's to the side of us, who's ever to the left or the right of us, we're not looking up at the boot on our fucking necks. I'm really struggling a lot with social media lately because in this fucking capitalist hellscape that we live in, I don't really have time or energy to have a life outside of work. And I hate admitting that. I hate saying that. Because I took a promotion and have a job that should, in theory, give me a much better work-life balance. My work-life balance is so much worse than it ever was before. And my community is just social media now. I don't get out a lot. I don't associate with people a lot. I don't have the time or energy to do so. That is also by design. And I want to get away from the toxic cesspool that is social media. It's so funny to me. If I did not look on social media for a day, my stress would go down exponentially. I told my husband recently there's a person who I've had a problem with for a long time who has caused a lot of drama, a lot of issues, and I said she only exists on social media. She doesn't exist in the real world. If I never looked on social media, I wouldn't have a problem with her anymore because she doesn't exist in the real world. She's never out in the real world. She doesn't have the balls to show up at my door. She just stalks me online. And if I was never on social media, she would barely be a blip in my radar. If even that. The problem is, I feel an obligation. I see things like the genocide in Gaza, and make no mistake, it's not a war, it's a genocide. Or the war on Ukraine. That phrasing is also intentional. Or ICE in our own country. And I feel like, how can I get off of it? How can I look away? I can't show up to protests. I can't show up to city council meetings or whatever. But I can at least share information. And that information is slowly chipping away at my sanity. Because all I do is see it and I share it. And I can't do anything to stop it. And then yesterday, I think it was, maybe day before yesterday, the president declared, without any authority to do so, I might add, that any member of Antifa was a terrorist. Which is very ironic because what he actually said, any member of the Antifa organization was considered a terrorist and they would be going after those who were giving them funding. Antifa isn't an organization. It's not. That's like saying anyone who is a member of punk is a terrorist. Like, it's not an organization, bro. It's just a mentality. And that's absolutely wild to me as someone who grew up just an absolute nerd about World War II history because I thought we were all supposed to be anti-fascist. Like we fought like a whole war about that. I thought that was like kind of our thing. you know? I mean, I know, like, it was, like, hush-hush and everyone kept it secret that we, like, kidnapped some of the German scientists and brought them back, and we were like, we won't kill you, just, like, tell us your secrets. And then there were the Germans who went to, like, South American countries and stuff and hid away and pretended to, like, be a part of the native culture and stuff, but like, I thought the whole thing was that we were supposed to be anti-fascist. Like, it was called World War for a reason. Like, we were all like, yeah, that's not good. Don't do that. And now we're like, yeah, actually, let's do that. And we're not even being subtle about it. Like, Donald Trump said Hitler had good ideas. Like, he's not even, like, trying to pretend like he's not. It's just like, yeah, that guy. I want to be like him. What? This is probably getting me put on some kind of list, but if I wasn't already on a list, then nobody's paying attention to me, so it's fine. I keep thinking about, like, the insanity of existing in this country right now. Because it's literally like, oh, yep, couple 100 miles away, they're just like arresting people all willy-nilly and throwing them in vans and taking them to concentration camps. I really wish that wasn't happening. That's horrible. But you know what? I got bills to pay. I have to go to work. If I don't go to work, I can't exist anymore. I can't feed myself. I don't have a place to live. I lose my car. I lose my house. I lose my dog and my cats, and maybe even lose my spouse. Not that my husband would leave me. I'm just, in general, like, it's set up against us to be able to do things. And the people who have the privilege to be able to go out and protest or to be able to go out and make a difference are getting so burnt out and exhausted that they're taking out their anger on the people who do not have the ability to do so and want to. And that's also problematic because the whole system is set up to keep us fighting each other instead of fighting those who are oppressing us. I want to shift gears a little bit away from the world trauma because I'm processing a lot of internal trauma recently, and I know I've talked about the Rewilding podcasts and YouTube videos before, but if you have any interest in astrology at all and how it affects our daily life, I highly recommend that you follow Rewilding with Sabrina, I think is the name of it, on YouTube. Just search Rewilding, you'll find it. It used to be Rewilding for Women, but she changed the name. She breaks down every week the astrology for the upcoming week and what it means. And I've read horoscopes since I was like a small child, and they were never really that poignant. They're always so ambiguous as to be applicable to just about anything. Her weekly astrology videos are completely spot on, and if you subscribe to her newsletter, she sends you on Sundays this weekly journaling prompt that goes along with each day. And they've made such a huge difference in my shadow work and working through my trauma. And yesterday was just an absolute breakthrough moment for me. Working in spiritual circles like I have for the past several years, one of the themes that always comes up when people are talking about working your purpose or whatever, it's like, figure out what lights you up. What lights you up? What lights you up? What turns you on? What is it that just makes you feel absolutely alive? And I have never, ever had an answer for that. in over 6 years. And yesterday, I found my answer, and it was so completely unexpected and out of the blue, and it was from one of the journal prompts from the Rewilding newsletter. I want to create safety. And that looks very different in different scenarios. I'm not really sure how to go about doing that. But I can do that wherever I am and whatever I'm doing. But that is the thing, and that is the underlying theme of everything that makes me feel completely alive and lit up, is that I am creating safety. Which makes a lot of sense as someone who never felt safe as a child. And even as an adult really doesn't feel safe. And I realize that within my career, I do that a lot. And this podcast is a way of doing that, to create safety for the people who feel like they're on the outside, who feel like there's no one who thinks or feels like them. And one of the biggest ways to create safety is to eliminate shame. And this is such a detour from everything I've talked about previous in this episode, but I'm going to say it anyway, because there's somebody out here who needs to hear this. Like, I'm a professional. I've been in my career field for close to a decade and a half. I've been a nurse for over a decade now. I am working in a management position. I should be very stable financially, and I'm not. And in any other period of my life when I was not financially stable, I could very confidently say it's my fault. I made bad decisions. I did this. I bought that. I was impulsive. I forgot about this, whatever. That is not true right now. And I'm behind on my car payment, and they are threatening to repossess my dream car that I've barely had 6 months, because some things happen and that were outside of my control. And here I find myself. And that is not me asking for pity. That is me speaking this out into reality to let other people know that it's okay if you're not okay. It's okay if you're struggling, even if you feel like you shouldn't be. I'm really embarrassed by this. And I shouldn't be, because it's not my fault. I didn't do anything irresponsible. I didn't make a mistake. There were circumstances outside of my control that changed my financial situation, and that got me behind. And some loan companies are more forgiving than others, and I have one that is not very forgiving. And it's gonna be okay. I don't feel okay right now, but it's gonna be okay. And sometimes that's where you have to find yourself, is that everything around you is crashing down, whether in your personal world or the world around you, or in my case, both. And you just have to look at the fact that you're sitting in a dumpster fire and just go, well, that's where I am. I won't be here forever. Eventually, this is gonna stop. One way or the other, this is gonna stop. I'm really disheartened after the recent assassination, which, quite frankly, was not surprising that it was from a right-wing extremist. If you've listened to my podcast for any time at all, I grew up with right-wing extremists. I was raised by them, And, I mean, the people who we surrounded ourselves with were the people who coined the term rhino, Republican in name only. They were the people who judged how conservative you were or how Christian you were. And if you weren't enough, then you didn't get to be in the fight. And quite frankly, the right wing is not unique in this. I see it in the left wing all the time now. And, oh, you use this term and you need to do better, and you didn't do this, and you're not boycotting this, and you're not, snorting unicorn dust and living in a tree all the time. Whatever. Like, on both sides of the political spectrum, there are people who decide that if you're not enough on one side, you don't get to fight with us. You don't get to sit with us. And the fact is, we're all just trying to live our lives, really. Like, I work with people who are Trump supporters. I don't hate them. I don't want them to be miserable. I don't want them to lose their house or their ability to vote or anything like that. I don't. We need to realize that we have way more in common with people who we work with, the people who are our neighbors, who voted differently than us, than the people who we voted for. And I hear a lot on the left, just as I did on the right, that, oh no, well, they voted for this person, so they support fill in the blank moral problem that you have with that ideology. For the right, it was always abortion, because of course it was. Well, they believe killing babies is okay, and I can't associate with anybody who thinks that's okay. For the left, of course, it's, the genocide and the fascist ideology. Well, they believe it's okay to just deport people. I want you to have a conversation with someone who is on the right. Not just a random person on the internet. I want you to have face-to-face conversation with someone on the right. Or if you're listening to my podcast and you're a right-winger, have a face-to-face conversation with someone on the left about your specific moral issue, whether it's abortion or whatever, and find out what they really believe. Shut up and listen to them. Do not listen to respond or convince them. Just listen. Find out what it is that they actually believe. Because that is the reason why I am no longer pro-life. It is the reason why I am no longer right-wing. Because I shut up and listened. And maybe if the reverse had happened, maybe I would be a lot more right-wing right now. The thing is, we all just want to take care of ourselves and take care of our families and not have government intervene and cause us problems. And that looks like very different things for different people. And they focus on very different topics and very different specific things. But as a whole, as Americans, we just want to exist. We just want to survive. We just want to be able to afford our groceries and our bills. And maybe take a vacation once or twice a year. Take care of our families. And not have to worry about anybody trying to harm that. And we don't understand that because we spend our time on social media instead of interacting with people. We don't go to pubs. We go on Facebook. We don't hang out with our communities. We scroll Instagram. And I'm not saying this as a judgment because I do it too. But our problem is that we don't have communities anymore. We have social media, and it's very easy to judge someone who you're not looking at in the face and decide you know everything about their ideology and pigeonhole them into your stereotype. I mentioned earlier in the episode about fiction and the purpose of fiction and why it's important. I think a lot about Doctor Who, specifically Horton Hears a Who, and how it took just one person speaking up and using their voice to make the difference. And I think a lot about Lord of the Rings, which I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan, so that's always on my mind. And Galadriel's words to Frodo. Even the smallest person can change the course of the future. We need to remember that we are love. We come from love. That is our origin. That has always been our origin. That is who we are. Fear is the opposite of love. But, as the Bible says, perfect love drives out fear. I hear Martin Luther King Jr. quoted a lot lately. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. We have to remember the love. We have to get back to love. Love is finding the empathy and the compassion. I've seen some vitriolic posts from those who were fans of Charlie Kirk in the last week. Absolutely filled with hate. But you know what? I don't believe they're hateful people. I believe that that was anger masking fear and hurt. Because I remember being on the right wing, and anytime anything happened like that, having this consuming fear that the leftists were coming after anyone who thought differently than them. Even though it has been very well established now that the killer was not a leftist. The right-wing media is doing a really good job spinning it to pretend that he was. And I think it's important to recognize that the people on the right who were Charlie Kirk fans or whatever, they're scared right now. And you can say whatever that you want to about how hateful they're being, and they are. They're very scared. And that needs to be acknowledged. Because wouldn't you be? Aren't you right now after Melissa Hortman and her husband and her dog were murdered? Aren't you scared? Aren't you scared after Trump decided that anyone who's against fascism is a terrorist? Aren't you scared after seeing the doxing website for anyone who wasn't mourning Charlie Kirk? And I'm saying this you because I know that most of my listeners do tend to lean a little left, but I know that I have right-wing listeners. And I hope that you listen to what I'm saying and find some empathy for those on the left. Just as I hope that the majority of my listeners listen to what I'm saying and find empathy for those on the right. Because I don't believe that the majority of Americans want a mass genocide in our country. I don't believe that the majority of Americans want concentration camps. I don't believe that the majority of Americans want to not be able to afford groceries so that our commander-in-chief can build a fucking gold-gilded ballroom. I don't believe that the majority of Americans want VA benefits cut to watch veterans become increasingly more homeless and not taken care of, like they aren't already. I don't believe that they want that, especially on the right, because the right, more so than the left, is very pro-veteran. I don't believe that what this administration is pushing forward is what the majority of the right wing of America wants. I think that there is a small majority who is very, very, very fucking loud, who is filled with hate and fear and refuses to acknowledge that they are filled with hate and fear and go to fucking therapy and deal with their issues and choose instead to push their hate and fear onto the rest of the world and silence out anyone who has any empathy or human decency. I don't think the majority of the right wing are hateful bigots. I think a lot of them are misinformed. Not all of them. I think a lot of them are misinformed. I think a lot of them just don't understand what it is that the left wants, that they have been subjugated to a lot of propaganda, as I was. When I found out what it was that the left wing actually believed, I was like, oh, that's not actually bad. That's just like very loving and empathetic. Why have I opposed this for so long? That's actually not bad. But for a long time, I refused to sit down and have conversations with anyone because I saw them as dangerous. And the problem is that we see our neighbors as dangerous because we have been pitted against each other. We cannot have a safe world without love. And love cannot exist without empathy. You have to be able to look into the eyes of the person who seemingly is nothing like you and see yourself. Because we are all mirrors of each other in one way or another. Especially those who are Christian. It boggles my mind that you cannot look into the eyes of another person and not see God. That is a biblical principle. We are all created in the image of God. We are all His children. Jesus died for all of us. How can you look at someone who thinks differently than you and feel hate and call yourself a Christian? It is against everything that Jesus taught. But I look myself now in the journey of my faith where I am now, and I see all of this hate coming from the right. And all I can think about is Jesus' almost last words on the cross. Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. Jesus spoke more than once about people who were too dumb to know what they were doing. And I look at the education in this country and the fact that the majority of adults don't read above a 6th grade reading level. And I think God would have pity on them, as He did with Nineveh in the book of Jonah, where He talked about those who could not tell their right hand from their left. We have a plague of ignorance in this country. Those who not only do not know basic, normal educational things, but certainly not higher education and higher learning and logic and reasoning and philosophy. They only know what is spoon-fed to them through the media. And that is not a judgment. That is, quite frankly, a statement of fact. And we should have empathy for them as well. Those who know nothing but fear. Those who have been trained and conditioned to just be good workers for the capitalist system. And not to think they are very easy to turn against others. This was a lot darker than I intended for this episode to be. But I think I said what needed to be said, as I usually do. And I have a note here that says Nimbus and Beatrix. That is my dog and my cat. Beatrix is a black cat that I've had since she was a kitten. Nimbus is the dog that my husband got before we were married, who imprinted on me instead of my husband. He loves both of us, but I think he loves me more. And Nimbus and Beatrix think that they have to compete for me. And they don't like each other because they think that they have to compete for me. And they won't come and try to get my attention at the same time because they're scared of each other. And the thing is, I could have both of them right up there with me at the same time and give both of them love, and they would both be fine. And I think that's what our country is like right now. It's like my dog and cat, who think that they can't get my attention at the same time, and that the other one is their competition, and that they are stealing something from them. Maybe a bad example because I'm not keeping attention or affection from either of them, like our government is keeping resources and etc. from us. But the point is that we need to stop fighting each other, because each other are not the enemies. I love you all. I hope that this podcast was beneficial for you in some way. I really appreciate all of you who have stuck with me over the last few months as I've been dealing with a lot. I'm glad that you stuck around, and hopefully I will be back on my regular posting schedule now. Let me know how you like the audio quality. The last several episodes I've used Studio One instead of Riverside. My husband has that and he set it up for me, and I think it's been better. Also, let me know how you like the theme song that my husband wrote for me. That was pretty jazzy, right? If you have questions or ideas for the podcast, you can email me at mosaicinprogress@gmail.com. You can follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I think I'm on TikTok too, but I should look that up before I say this on here. I know I've posted TikToks, but I think my name is different on there. I'll figure it out. Anyway, thank you for joining me. This was a little chaotic, but I appreciate you hanging in there with me. And I will see you next time on the podcast as we both continue to work on our Mosaic in Progress.